And a good day to you, Explorer Nation. Ambassador of Alumni Affairs, John Lynskey here with Season 5, Episode 3 of Looking Back with Lynskey. And it's such an honor to have an esteemed guest today. He is the co-founder and partner at Allied Engineering. He's a proud alumni dad, a member of our alumni board, has been active in our football and lacrosse programs particularly. And very importantly, he has dedicated himself to teenage mental health and suicide awareness. A true explorer from the class of 1984. Please welcome Raul Rivero to the show. Raul, thank you for being here, my brother.
Thank you, my brother, John. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to talk to our audience, to the Columbus community, to our alumni, to our teachers. And I just can't say enough about how special this moment is for me to be able to speak to our audience.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm very pleased that we're doing this. So, Raul, everything has a beginning.
Yeah.
How did you get to Columbus High School?
That's a great story. And my story is a story of football, believe it or not. And so
I do.
I grew up in Miami, went to a local Cuban school, which is no longer even around, called Baldor.
And, I remember Baldor, yeah.
Baldor, yeah. There's a lot of Columbus guys that came through Baldor, and a lot of notables, actually. And my sister, Patty, who actually went to St. Brennan's, was dating Alex Roca from the 1980 state final team. Yeah. The Roca families, Ralph Roca, George Roca, who unfortunately passed away not too long ago. The Roca families, I think there were 3 boys that came through the Columbus hallway. So Patty, my sister, was dating Alex Roca. I was in 6th grade, and I'm the only son wedged between 2 sisters. So Alex became a default brother for me. And so our families were very close. Our families knew each other from Cuba. And so Alex had a tremendous, profound influence on me. Hi to Alex, if you're listening in. And he was like my big brother. And so I started playing football at Tamiami Park, where Jimmy O'Neill was, 83, Jerry Jolliffe, if you guys remember Jolliffe, and a bunch of Columbus Explorer football players that came out of the Tamiami Colts program. So I was playing football at Tamiami, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and Alex had gone to Columbus and was playing for Coach Lewis.
Yes.
At the time, under Coach Lovell, our defensive coordinator at the time. And so my mom had to make a decision as to what high school she was going to place me in. And Alex had a big role in that decision. At that age, I was a young teenage boy, and football was everything to me. And so Columbus was turning the corner in regards to its program, coming out of the mid-'70s and late '70s off the 1979 Goose Egg team, which a bunch of notable players came out of that. And so I came to Columbus, obviously because it's a great school. My parents had no other, had limited choices because they wanted to continue to keep me in a private school. Faith in my family was extremely important. Our faith was the center of our lives. So keeping me in a parochial Catholic school was obviously one of the most important factors beyond the education that Columbus provided me, which was fantastic. But Columbus, the football was also a big part of that decision. And so I entered Columbus. I think I was 13 years old at the time, in the fall of 1980, because I was one of the youngest in my class. They've changed the school calendar in terms of admittance age. But, when you go out for Columbus football, you start in the summer.
Yeah.
And so I was able to start playing football in the summer of 1980 before even entering school as a freshman. And I was able to make a lot of great friends, which to this day, are the nucleus of my my friend group and the family that I continue to hold very valuable to me.
That's a great experience for freshmen. You get a leg up on knowing people. So when the school bell rings for the first time, because you've been at football, and summer practices were pretty tough back then with the 2-a-days and everything else, you were acclimated, and you kind of had a feel for the school that other 9th graders don't have. So I couldn't agree more with that. Yeah,
absolutely. By the time I walked into the first day of class, most of those freshmen were, walking around with, just sort of, just lost for the most part. And I had already immediately had 50 of my best friends already there. Football, as you know, has a way of bonding. Columbus does it in of itself. The brotherhood is unique in of itself, unlike any other school that I've ever seen, ever.
Mm-hmm.
And that in of itself is very special. But what football does, it's a subculture within the culture of the Columbus Explorer Marist tradition, is that it bonds you even closer. I mean, because those 2 days and drinking water out of that dirty trash can bucket and, having to get back and on the field in your soaking, stinky, dirty jersey, has a way of bonding, adolescent, young teenage boys together, which to this day, like I said, are some of my best friends and the guys I lean on most when I need them.
Those ties bind forever, no question about it. Raul, the school is bigger now. Obviously, we've got a lot of advancements that we didn't have when you were in school, when I was in school.
Yeah.
And it's hard to describe, particularly to normal people, what Columbus was like in the early and mid 80s. Take us back to those kind of freewheeling days at Explorer Nation.
I think that period of time was a time of change. We're coming out of the 70s into the 80s. You had Columbus was a rock and roll school. It was always a rock and roll school, when I say rock and roll school, it was just like the culture of that. And so as a Cuban American, as the firstborn of my family from Cuban parents born in the United States, that came in the 60s, I was the first of and there was a few years before me that started to sort of not displace, but integrate into a more established Anglo-American school system. And so there were some changes there, right?
Yeah.
The Cuban community was growing. We were succeeding financially. Our parents were hard at work trying to put our kids through really good at schools and good education. Columbus was right there.
Yeah.
And, to this day, the big rival, it's not really a rival, as we know, was the Belen versus Columbus thing. And so, we sort of kicked, that sort of tradition and went sort of into the more Anglo school at the time, the Marist school, which was Columbus at the time. But, it was a time of change. I came in 1980, the beginning, the first year of a new decade.
Yeah.
Corduroy pants and wooden clogs and plaid shirts and ties that were about 10 inches long, that didn't matter. And so, long hair.
Yeah.
And it was really a remarkable transformation of a school that had started in the late 50s and now was sort of finding its a new identity, a new culture. And football was a big part of that. I don't want to harp too much on the football thing, but it can't go unnoticed because, Coach Lavelle, which was my coach during the 80s, coaches have a remarkable impact on young men. A good coach will have a lifelong impact on a person that goes beyond the life of that person. A great coach will instill in you discipline and values and morals and work ethic that translate into your own family system and even pass on to your own sons, like it had with me. And so I say this to you because there was a very unique culture at Columbus during that period of time. The legends of Columbus, and it's not an understatement.
Mm-hmm.
You fit right into that, and I know you're a humble guy, but you were part of that culture. You came out of that sort of generation that I'm talking about, and you were influenced by many of the same men that I am talking about here now.
Yes.
And so Coach Riley and Lavelle and Zorzi and that unfortunately we lost, and many. The list is long, but those men made men out of us. I mean, they forged us in the men. Now, how was it changed? Well, they don't hit us anymore.
There's that.
They don't use the paddles. I don't know, unless it's happening behind closed doors that I'm not aware of. But Coach O'Neill, Jimmy O'Neill's father, Tom O'Neill, and Burris, and God bless his soul, Dowling, Coach Dowling. If you were late to class or you were misbehaving in that class, you'd look up at that wall and he'd tell you pick a paddle. And so, those days are, if you ask me what's changed, well, there was something to be said for that type of corporal discipline that today doesn't exist. But seriously speaking, as much as the school has changed infrastructure-wise, educationally has come a long way as well.
Yeah.
The heart, the soul, the spirit, the DNA, the granular essence of what makes us Marist men and explorers has not changed at all. And I had the great benefit and the great honor of having to walk these halls all over again and go through the school system all over again, not as an alumni board member that I was for like 10 years, and not as a coach. I coached for like 2 years. I went back on my bucket list and wanted to give back and coach, but as a parent. My son, Raul Jr., just graduated this past May. He's a 2023 graduate. And so I was able to experience and relive this this remarkable journey all over again. And, a Columbus guy, a Columbus man is a Columbus man, whether he graduated in the 50s, 60s, or 70s. There's something about what the Marist brothers do and what the tradition of the explorers does that creates this type of identity and this humility and stewardship responsibility that we carry on for the rest of our lives, right?
Yeah, and it happens organically. There's not a handbook for it. It's just always been that way. And yeah, times change, rules changed, et cetera, et cetera. But that essence that you were referring to, in other words, your son, although circumstances were different, would have had the same experience that you had in 84 that I had in 78. And it's just the way it is. And the fact that some of the people that were there for both of us are still there is mind-boggling, and then that's it right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what Columbus does uniquely that I think other schools miss the target is that it cultivates the whole human being, right?
Yeah.
We are mind, body, and spirit. And so Columbus does a great job of addressing all of those things. But it also takes a young man and works with that young man in a very gracious, forgiving, patient way. There's schools out there that, one strike and you're out.
Yeah.
You didn't cut the grades and you're out, And so the reason Columbus does so well, and the amazing thing about our alumni community is that there is, and it's palpable. It's a palpable thing when you go to a tailgate party or to any Columbus event. The gratitude that Columbus alumni have for the school and for their teachers and for the institution itself, because what it did was it's a journey. Life is a very long road. And, these adolescent years, these teenage years are very formative years that make lasting impressions that send you on a trajectory for the most part. And so, teenage years, and this might be a good segue to sort of, mental illness and some of the issues that were associated with teenage years are trying years where young men are trying to find out their identity. There's a lot of changes that are taking place. People mature at different ages. People come of age at different ages. We don't always have it all figured out. And Columbus and brothers like Brother Brady, Father Dennison, which was a remarkable, one of my best friends until he passed just recently, had a profounding, lifelong effect on me. But I only, I was only with him for a few years. And what I'm saying to you is that my experience is just not my experience. I had this conversation with fellow Columbus alumni and class of 84 classmates, and we have group chats. I have like 4 Columbus group chats, the class of 84 group chat, and I have sub group chats within those sub group chats. I have the Columbus. It's crazy. I can't keep up with all the different chats. Yeah. But that's the brotherhood, right? We're here for each other. And so Columbus does a remarkable way of developing and the formation of young men spiritually, I would say emotionally as well, and educationally, and obviously physically. I mean, I think it goes without saying that Columbus, what it does in the sports and athletic arena, is by far at the top of one of our most greatest achievements. And you know what? sports has a huge impact on how you, the lessons you learn in football and every other sport for that matter translates into real life and into the real world. And those are valuable tools and lessons that you carry on into the business world, into everything else that you do in your life. And I recognize my coaches as having a big part of my success.
Yeah, I want to circle back to the football thing a little bit later, but you just hit on something, and you hit on it earlier. The worth ethic that was instilled in us by Dennis Lavelle, by Bob Lewis, Warren Zorzi, Mike Dean, Dowling, et cetera, because they were all great teachers too. How did that worth ethic carry over into your career as an engineer? Because you have worked very hard, and this wasn't handed to you. You went out and earned it. And talk about that, the lessons you learned and how you applied it in your professional life.
Well, and I taught these lessons to my son as well, who's on his way to tremendous success right now, on a college scholarship playing lacrosse for Division II Palm Beach Atlantic. What I learned is that nothing's given.
Yeah.
Everything's earned. And that greatness, you got to pay greatness its rent every single day. And if you want to be great, you have to do what others are unwilling to do, right, to achieve greatness. And so there is no easy way. There's no easy path. There are no shortcuts to greatness and to success. In the classroom, you got to push the pencil. And on the field, the work and the success gets done outside of the practice field. Now, what are some of the lessons that you learn is that you have to work hard. Mm-hmm. You have to work hard. And as much as sports is a physical game and athletic ability matters, it's a mind game too, the strength of the mind. And so, what we achieved in the late 70s and early 80s, not discounting the 4, state championships or the visits that we've had in recent years, which is remarkable in of itself, but to climb that mountain like we did through the 60s and 70s required a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
And those coaches that were there at that time were old school, blue collar, lunch in your, brown bag and lunch. And there were no excuses. I mean, just no excuses. And so life is, you can make up all excuses for the circumstances that you face that might be difficult and challenging, but you know what? They're just excuses. And, successful people, winners find a way. They find a way. And there's a lot of stories of that. Columbus is littered with success stories of alumni that have faced adversity. And what the school and what our coaches taught us is that you got to find a way. And, and that way usually lies deep inside your heart, to find the courage, to find the faith, to keep going and moving forward. And I know that's a bit of a winded answer, but, they do a really good job of teaching us from an early age, what it requires to win. And it was no coincidence that we reached the 1980 championship and 1982 championship. I mean, we didn't have a lot of all-stars back then. We were a bunch of, just regular middle class, white and Cuban American boys, maybe one or two stars, but we had no business. Yeah, we had no business going to the state championship based on our roster, if you were to look at it. But yeah, we had the goose egg defense in '79, and we had that remarkable team in '80 and '82. And so, I'm a football guy and a lacrosse guy, but you could see that, you could say that about all the other sports and all the other programs at Columbus. There's something uniquely common. There's a common thread that runs through that, and it's a philosophy that if you believe in yourself, you believe in each other, you're there for your brother, and you leave no man left behind, for the lack of a better expression, good things could happen. And so, and that's that's Columbus's story, isn't it?
It is. And your personal story, you mentioned overcoming adversity a moment ago. Last January, you went through, one of the great inconceivable tragedies when you lost your wife, Miriam, on January 29th. And your resiliency, your determination to keep moving, you've got a son, you got a daughter, you have responsibilities, but just personally to pick yourself up and not only continue on, but to open a new chapter in your life where instead of becoming a mourning victim, you become an advocate for the very things that took Miriam away from you. And let's discuss what you've done since January 29th and your dedication to mental health awareness and suicide prevention, particularly among young people, because it's very admirable, my brother.
Thank you. It's not a club I ever signed up for, nor a club I ever expected to be. And what you could expect from life, that life changes every single day. You could expect changes, and the road to life has a lot of unexpected twists and turns. And so what we faced and what my family faced on January 29th was the most tragic, traumatizing, heartbreaking loss you could have ever have imagined. Miriam and I were married for 30 years, 32 years together, 3 beautiful children, a remarkable woman that, touched thousands and thousands of lives, a graduate of St. Brendan's High School, an incredible mother. Her whole identity was wrapped up as a mother, as a wife, as a friend, a licensed mental health counselor for 30 years. I was on the front rows seat. I had a front row seat to her journey. She was a remarkable human being, an exception to what we see in the world, a true angel that gave her life to service and to helping others after a catastrophic car accident at the age of 21, which many people from the Columbus community remember. It was a really bad car accident that one of her best friends died, Aldo Romanach and Goler. I say this to you because we built our boat. Our family built our boat. It was based on our faith. It was based on Christ. It was Christ-centered. And so our relationship, in my opinion, was brought together by God for a purpose. Our children were raised with faith, not a fake faith, a real faith. And so Miriam was perfectly fine for 54 years of her life, a wonderful member of this community. There was over 1,500 people, I think, just at the Mass. Over 1,000 people went to her wake. And it wasn't because the Riveros are rich or powerful or politically connected. It's because we make a difference in the lives of others, of how we live, right? And so she gave so much love to other people that, she made a difference in the world. So when we lost her after a 1.5-year battle with what was clinical depression, major depressive disorder, and severe anxiety brought on by a series of things, including menopause, the loss of her father just after COVID, her mother dealing with advanced Alzheimer and dementia. And there was some mental health issues in the family. And the message here, and I'll get to your answer to the question they're asking, is that, we're all affected by mental health. We are 100% of all human beings are in the mental health spectrum. The question is, what tools do we have that keep us away from moving into the mental illness area? And so what happened, there was no other choice, John. I didn't have any options. And that's sort of a Columbus, inside linebacker, mentality is, I had a choice. I did have choices.
Yeah, you
did. I really only had one choice is to keep forging ahead. And so, and I said this at the eulogy. I go, if you're expecting the Rivero family and Raul Rivero family to curl up in a bed, hit the bottle or feel sorry for himself and disappear, you're betting on the wrong guy. This is not who we are. I'm an explorer. And so I had these, we were hit with a, category 7 hurricane that blew every single living thing off the face of Earth. Really, for us, it was an apocalyptic loss, but our roots were deep, 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 deep into the ground. And so I knew that I had 3 children that were looking at me, and that a suicide is probably one of the most traumatic events that any family could experience. It is just so disruptive. It's not a natural death with cancer or any other car accident, or whatever. It's a very dark thing, and it's something that people don't want to talk about, but we must talk about it. There was over, I think we're in double digits in some segments of our demographics of suicide rates. The suicide rates have never been higher in this society, in the United States of America, ever. Mental health is probably number one public health crisis in our society at this point. And so we're 50 years, 40 years, 30 years behind probably the rest of the world when it comes to mental health issues. And remedies to try to help people that are suffering from that. And so I decided early on that I was going to turn my pain and turn into a purpose. And Miriam's legacy of helping others for 30 years in the mental health field, from the adolescent to the geriatric, she worked for United Behavioral Health. That I was going to pick up that torch, and I was going to continue her fight because I knew how important it was her, and I recognized that all those folks that went to her wake and to her funeral, although it resonated with them, that she was such a special person lost, but I also believe that it resonated with everybody because it struck a chord that struck, that connected, that they felt connected in some way, because everybody in their family system has someone, and we can live in denial, but it's a fact, whether it's an aunt, an uncle, an extended family, or an immediate family that suffers with mental health. We will all go through some level of depression or anxiety in our lifetime, all of us. And so the question is, what tools do we have that we could incorporate that will help us, find a way forward? Because suicide is not, it doesn't need to happen. It's an avoidable loss. And so teenagers, I was looking at the numbers the other day, between 10 and I think it was between 10 years old and 24 years old, the numbers for suicides is astronomical.
Yes.
And so I decided to create a foundation, the Monarch Mental Health Foundation, and try to put my piece of the puzzle into the bigger equation to try to make a difference and try to make some systemic changes. And that's what I'm doing.
So to your point, Raul, teenage suicides are up 35% since 1999. And there's a lot of factors, the isolation of COVID. I think social media is a big deal. But here's a question. Why is it that, people can talk about, oh, I need a knee replacement. Oh, I got to get a root canal. Oh, I got high blood pressure, whatever the case may be. But mental health is one of those taboos. And I know that's what you're trying to change, but why do you think that is? Do you have any idea?
It hasn't been spoken about in the public square.
But why?
Because it's been stigmatized.
Yeah. Okay.
It's been stigmatized by the family system. It's looked as a form of embarrassment or shame to the family or to those around them. There's a tremendous lack of understanding.
Yeah.
It's really rooted in ignorance. It's what it's rooted in. It's rooted in complete and utter ignorance. And so, things change when you get educated. And when you become educated, you become empathetic, you start understanding. And so for decades and decades and decades, we used to institutionalize people with mental health issues. We would throw people that had bipolar and mental health issues when they would get into the trouble with the general criminal population in the jail system. I've seen that firsthand. And so our society, from a legislative governing democratic system, has not done enough. This is the first time ever, I think, the Biden administration in the White House has ever created this sort of awareness of suicide. They have that 988 suicide hotline now, and the Surgeon General has come out. This has never, ever been in the public square. And if you turn on CNN and you start listening to the news now, it's becoming more and more and more prevalent, the public conversation. And so this is a area that people don't know. It's an invisible disease. You break your collarbone, you're walking around with a sling, you sprain an ankle, you got a cast. People could see, they could understand, but what they don't understand is the complexity of the mind, the complexity of the chemistry of the body, which is still a very foreign, but also the human psyche and psychological psyche. I mean, there's young men, 18, 19 years old, that are otherwise perfectly fine, that sign up to go into the army, go away to war, and come back with post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, so there's the psychological, traumatic aspect of that. And there's also the biological, physiological, chemical, psychiatric side of that. And so it's this very wide spectrum. And there's a lack of understanding, a lack of resources. What I went through was, and I created this foundation because I would never want anybody to have to go through what I went through again. So I'm taking the lessons that I learned, and I'm trying to make some changes to our system. And And I've got some really powerful people on the board working with me. Mark Bonacani from the Miami Project to Cure Paralysis and the Bonacani Fund, 40 years advancing research in that arena, raised over $500 million so far to that end. We're as explorers, we don't do anything small. And so we're taking this to the highest levels. Tomorrow I'm going to come out. I don't know when this thing airs, but tomorrow being Sunday, we'll be on NBC. Jackie Nesbraw. It's a show called Impact with Jackie Nesbraw, and I'll be on that show talking about the nation's mental health issues and the foundation and some of the things that we're trying to do. But yeah, adolescents and young teenagers, the demographics that Columbus High School addresses, it's a major problem, and even into college. Elizabeth Behar Chamas, which is on my board too, she's the vice president and provost of FIU. Had a Baker Act. I think if I'm correct, she told me she Baker Acted over 56 students last year.
Wow.
And we put together with her help this year, earlier, about 6 weeks after Miriam passed away. They do these campus walks. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention does campus walks. It's been going on for decades because they recognize that the college age population has very high mental illness and depression issues and suicide rates. So FIU had, for the second year, put these walks, this campus walk, to raise money for American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. Usually these walks involve 3 or 4 or 5 people on a team, and they walk around campus and they raise money. Somewhere around $10,000 to $12,000 is what I understand the average is nationally. This is at every single major university in the United States. And so this year I was approached by Elizabeth and her daughter and her daughter friends, which are Lourdes girls, that they were going to walk for the second year. My 2 daughters went to Lourdes, so they wanted to walk in solidarity with my 2 daughters that graduated from Lourdes, and they wanted to walk in honor of Miriam. And I was humbled at these 2 young little teenage girls that were trying to get service hours, and I told them I would support them 100%. Long story short, 200 people walked on Team Miriam. 200 people walked on Team Miriam out of a total of probably 250 to 275 people. We raised $62,000 on Team Miriam out of the total 67 that was raised by FIU in total. And so we broke national records. We broke the national record for across the board, for any one university that raised the most money. They had never raised $67,000. They had never had more than, they never had 200 people walk on one team, and they never had one team raise over $60,000. So we broke 3 national records, and so that got us national attention. And what I realized is that this is a real crisis. And what's happened is I've opened up the conversation. I have no shame in what happened. I'm all about shining light onto these situations because it's in the darkness where people suffer. It's in the silence that people suffer, and within our own family systems. And so I was going to take it. I was going to take this and talk about it, and I'm going to continue talking about it until people start accepting this and having tolerance and enable people that are suffering to come out and speak. Because the biggest thing is the stigma, and they're afraid to open up and they're afraid to talk. And so, when they're depression, you don't want to leave the room. You don't want to take the calls. Depression, anxiety is an isolation disease. And that's where the mind starts playing tricks on you. And that's where things spiral. And so my job is to bring it out to the public square and make sure that mental health is on par and in balance with physical health. Right. And it's the time, right? When we were growing up in the 70s and 80s, we didn't talk about meditation and mental health. We used to talk about, get up and, shake yourself off and dust yourself off and stop,
rub some dirt on it. You'll be fine.
Yeah. So anyways, that's where we're at.
Adults don't like to talk about things. Teenagers, even less so. So if the Monarch Mental Health Foundation can change the life of a handful of kids that are teetering through information, through education, or just communication for that matter, then what you're setting out to do is going to be successful, Raul. And I can't commend you enough for that.
Thank you much. If we could just save one life, spare one family, whatever I do for the rest of my life, that would have made a difference. And so, we're trying to educate We're trying to advocate. We're trying to eliminate stigma. We're trying to raise money to try to influence changes within our legislative and insurance systems, and give it the type of recognition that it needs so that treatments and affordable and accessible resources are there. And to let people know, especially young people, that, there are tools, there are resources. You're not alone. And, the biggest thing about anxiety, depression, and many mental disorders are that you don't feel like there's anybody that understands your issues. And so we want to be able to open up the conversation and start educating people. And we're doing that right now. And I'm so humble and grateful and appreciative that you've opened up this conversation, because I feel that we're going to do some really incredible things down the road. I just know it.
You've emphasized faith throughout our conversation. Did you ever question God after it happened? Were you angry at God? Did you ever get to that point?
No. I'm a very spiritual person. I have a tremendous, like I said earlier, we built our boat. And so, for many, many years as a young man, I believed in God. I was like an ATM Catholic. I'd go to prayer when I need him, I didn't have a relationship with God or Christ. Okay. I'm a Catholic. I went to parochial schools my whole life. I'm unapologetically Catholic, but I'm a Christian and I'm a man of faith. I'm a seeker of truth. I'm mostly a spiritual person. And so going through my adolescent years and, and for those that knew me from the 80s, thank God we don't have video and internet and all of those things anymore, because
you got that right.
Yeah, thank God. But, I'm sort of like the prodigal son as well. I was not, I got into a lot of trouble growing up. And so I was always fighting and, I was always looking for a great party to go to. And so I ran in a fast crowd, but I had that seed planted in me of faith early. And so, if you don't water that seed, if you don't tend to your garden, if you don't take care of your spiritual garden, it could wither away. The weeds will grow, the weeds of sin, the weeds of the world, the external. And so, my wife and I came together when I was 24. And so, I guess my point is that, I spent a lot of years and decades, we're mind, body, and spirit. And I worked on, I had Columbus. I had a priest in my family, had a tremendous influence on my faith. But, I had Father Dennison had a profound influence on my faith. Mm. And Father Dennison helped create a lot of the awareness that I had. And so long story short is, I have a relationship with Christ. I pray, I meditate. I don't have all the answers. And it's not my place to ask questions. My place is to walk in faith. I don't know the greatest plan, the bigger plan. And I don't know, but I do know that God has placed us on this earth and that we each have a mission. I know that we are stewards. Columbus teaches us that we are stewards of each other and of the gifts and graces that he gives us. And so I was never angry at God. As a matter of fact, as strange as it is, I'm grateful. I drove around in a Lamborghini of a wife for 30 years. I look back with gratitude.
Yeah.
Nothing lasts forever. And so I live every day, again, with an attitude of gratitude. Every day I get up and I go, I'm thankful. I'm thankful for you, John. I'm thankful for Columbus. I'm thankful for my kids. I'm thankful for all the gifts that they've given us. I'm not bitter. And as strange as this sounds, and no one will really understand this, I'm almost grateful for what I just went through. How crazy is that? Because you can't take the good without the bad. You don't get the resurrection without the crucifixion. Mm. You don't get redemption without paying the price. And so, I take it all as God's plan. And there's lessons to that. And there's a bigger story here. Like I said at her eulogy at Church of Little Flower, and the whole entire Columbus community was there. The lacrosse team was there. It was really a special event. That this is not a sad story. Yes, it's tragic. Yes, it's traumatic. But other families have had losses too.
Yeah.
And whether Miriam died by suicide and mental illness, or she died as a result of cancer, or she died as a result of a car accident, which we all know people and family members that have, it's not how she died, it's how she lived.
Yeah.
It's how she lived. And so it's a sad chapter, but it's not a sad story. This book is still being written. And so to go back to answer your question is, I get up every single day and I have to walk in faith. And faith is facing your fears with courage. You know, you don't think there's days that I don't want to move on and that I want to stay in bed. You know, it's coming out of it's like coming out of an apocalyptic battlefield. And so I get up every day and I have to create a new life for myself, a life that I thought I had and it was going to last till I was 80 or 90 years old. I no longer have it. I have to pick up the pen and every day write a new sentence of the rest of my life, knowing that I have 3 kids that are looking at me, and I'm teaching them and I'm teaching myself as well how to navigate the torturous waters of what we've had to encounter.
Well, so far your new chapter is beautifully written, and I appreciate you sharing so honestly. Let's talk about 2 big events coming up. Let's talk about the Monarch Mental Health Foundation Monarch Moonlight Party on September 23rd. Tell people about this wonderful event, Raul.
Wow. It's going to be fantastic. So we've had 2 events. I talked to you a little bit about the first one at the FIU Campus Walk. We had one recently back in May at Casa Tiki, which was well attended by Columbus. We had 330 people show up for that fundraiser. Great time. And so this is like our largest, biggest event. This is sort of our coming out party. And so we're having on September 23rd, Saturday night, the first annual Monarch Mental Health Moonlight Party at La Tropical Cerveceria, a fantastic brewery in Wynwood. The address is 42 Northeast 25th Street. Starts at 8 p.m. It's $50. You can get the tickets on Eventbrite.
Okay.
There's also sponsorship opportunities. The Columbus community has sort of stepped up. We have Eddie Consuegra, DJ Don Gato, giving us some DJ spins, and we're going to have Tide Ashes handing out cigars, and it'll be cigar rollers. I got Juan Guixon from the class of '83, Johnny Cuba sponsoring beers, and everybody has stepped up. It's really been a remarkable thing. And so we're expecting probably somewhere between 400 and 500 people to take over the place, and we're going to have a band, a trio, a British American trio, fantastic band. They're unbelievable. Called Rains. They're here from LA. They're doing a little South Florida debut, and so Rains is going to be the live band, and we're going to be raising for Monarch Mental Health, and we're going to give part of the proceeds to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and we're going to keep some of the money to continue build our reserves so that we could start offering alternatives and options to the mental health community. And one of my goals is to eventually create a mental health advocate. So when a family is in crisis and a family member or loved one is impaired, that there is a third party voice guiding them instead of them dealing directly, perhaps with a provider that may or may not have the resources or may not have the best interest at them at heart. That there's a third party voice sort of, hey, listen, maybe you should consider this, or there's an option over here. And so that was one of the things that I didn't know. I trusted the system that we entered, and I didn't realize what I was getting into. And so if I would have had maybe a third party, like an independent voice guiding me or giving me advice or counseling me, perhaps I would have made some different choices. But we do the best we can with the information we have in front of us. And so there's a lot of things we want to accomplish, but it's going to be a great event. I can't say enough how special and how wonderful the event's going to be. So I encourage everybody that's out there to please attend, support us, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, Eventbrite, right?
Yes, Eventbrite. And if you follow us on social media, you could friend request me, or maybe reach out to you. You know the information, and just ask around. But it's Saturday night, September 23rd. La Cerveceria Tropical, and it's going to be the Monarch first annual Moonlight Party.
That's outstanding. Explore Nation, we need to support this one.
Yeah.
And then, Raul, going back to football, we'll wrap it up with this. Saturday, October the 7th, the alumni tailgate party. We're playing Homestead at Tropical Park, and we are going to honor the 80 and 82 teams. and the response, and with your help, and I deeply appreciate this, we all do, the response has been phenomenal. These guys are excited. There's talk of a scrimmage at halftime, who was the better team and everything else. Coach Lavell's going to be there. And I think it's an amazing opportunity, over 40 years later, to look back at what men, now pushing 60, over 60, accomplished. And yes, we all stand on the shoulders of giants, and Coach Dunn's program has been amazing over the last 4 years. But we started to win with you guys. And to honor that, this is exciting. How excited are you?
Oh, I'm pumped up. I'm completely pumped up, and I'm super psyched. And we never lost touch. Me and my teammates still get together all the time.
Yeah.
And we have every 5 years a get together and a reunion. And I know some of the guys from the 80 team does as well. And there's a very close brotherhood and camaraderie between the 80 and 82 teams, because we all, I went to Columbus those 4 years, and we went to the state championship twice, and we had really 4 great years of football. And so, it's I still talk to Alonzo Highsmith all the time. He's one of my close friends, and Mark Bonicani, and even guys from the 80 team. And so it's going to be special. And so I know that you went to the special reunion that we had, that I put together a couple years ago. That brought in also the 79 team, the 80 and 82 teams, and we honored Coach Lavelle and Coach Zorzi. Thank God we were able to do that before he passed.
Yes.
And that was at the Colonnade Hotel in Coral Gables. We had guys like Julio Cortez and John McVeigh and Kevin McCutcheon and all the legends from those years come up. And so this will be very much similar to that. We have never really honored the 80 and 82 teams. And I had thought about this before we started our podcast, is that as remarkable it is, and it's nothing short of remarkable, what Coach Dunn has done and the program has done, even under Coach Merritt, which he deserves a lot of credit too, for shepherding the program and having success over the last couple of years before Dunn had come on. But what we were able to accomplish with the resources that we had, we built a foundation. We built a foundation with the coaches and the players that we had, that gave the school and the program its legs for decades and decades to come. I mean, the school started in 59, if I'm not mistaken, through the 60s and 70s, and it was those late 70 years. And I give a lot of kudos also to the 79 team.
Oh, absolutely.
Under Lavelle. But that when that 80 team, we started to peak already at 80, and we weren't out there. Columbus wasn't the school you go to go play football. Okay. No. That's now. That's not what, this was an organically grown, program. And so what we did was nothing short of remarkable. And the fact that we were able to go to the state championship twice in 4 years, my team played the number 3 team in the nation, which was Pensacola Woodham at the time. We went 12-2. We did have 2 All-Stars and Mike Shula and Alonzo Highsmith. And, but you could argue that we had no business even getting there. And Correct. So we got there because of the values and the work ethic that we had, and we grinded our way to the top. And so that really was the foundation and the building blocks of what later turned into a successful program that is still successful to this day. And so, it was built on the backs of, I'm not going to take credit for any of that, because I was, I was just a small role in a bigger program. But collectively, our teammates, we were stuck together like glue, and there was nothing going to penetrate that. And so that is the type of forged iron that propelled the program to success in the years that came. And people started coming to the school because of the success we had. And so it was a game changer.
It was. We've come a long way from Coral Rock and a closet for a weight room. I will say that.
It was a closet. It was one little, I think it was like an 8x10 closet with one universal machine. You had to wait in line to get in. It was a sweat box of a sauna, and you had to wait till the guy was done with the military portion to be able to move on to the next one. And you had 50 guys in line trying to do a circuit through there. It's ridiculous of what we were able to achieve, despite the resources that we had, And
I still got the scars from the Coral Rock, down my forearms. That was then. This is now, my brother. And I am glad that we're able to do this My admiration for you is boundless. Your perseverance and your determination to make good out of a horrible situation, and all the best of luck on September 23rd. And man, I can't wait to see you on October 7th. One
Can't wait to
more
see you as
time.
well.
Yeah. So, my brother, thank you very much. It's been an honor and a pleasure, and I will see you very soon.
All right,
So,
my brother.
Explorer Nation,
Good to
please
see you.
come out and support the Monarch Moonlight Party on September 23rd. Come see us October 7th at the Alumni Tailgate. It's going to be epic. And so, until next time, Adelante, Explorer Nation, and take it easy. Thanks, Raul.
You're welcome, my friend.